What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Women Effect Show presented by WINJECT Studios. I am your host, Chris Ross, and if you're new to us, welcome. Really excited and blessed to have you here for the first time. The outcome of this show is to inspire and help you, our listeners, to manifest anything you want out of life. How I go about achieving this is with my philosophy: one heartbeat, one mission, one outcome, and that only leads to you adopt the proper behaviors that will take you to another level of thinking. For today's episode, I have someone that's devoted her life to help humans develop the courage to recognize the value of compassion, innate wisdom, and the reality that we are interdependent beings to empower decisions supporting personal well-being as well as social and ecological justice. In my opinion, Jona Genova is more than just an energy healer, entrepreneur, and a teacher. And I promise you, if you pay attention in today's episode, you'll discover why. If you or you know someone that has suffered from complex traumas, please do us a favor and share this episode to as many people as you can. Lastly, text us at 843-396-2104 and let us know how you felt about today's episode. Stand by for a quick message and let's have some fun.
This podcast is part of the WINJECT Studios network, where podcasters come together to focus on community, collaboration, and collective impact. For more information on how to apply to join the network, go to www.winject.com. That's WINJECT.com. If you're ready to make a difference through podcasting, then we're ready to see you there.
What is up, everybody? As you can tell, I have a beautiful soul on the other end of this, and it's going to blow it up and take it up a couple notches and share her wisdom on energy healing and all the things that she's done. And welcome to the show. How you doing?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me, Chris.
Always. I have to. I had to have you on. So I know that we've had older conversations, but doing something for the listeners, and you have an amazing story. And if anybody can just hear how passionate you are about what you do, and it shows, and a lot of people, they say, oh, you got to be passionate about what you do. Of course you do, but how well can you deliver that out into the marketplace and the people that you're trying to serve? And you don't really have to say much copy about you. They feel that from you. And I think that's powerful. I mean, how often do you see that especially in your type of industry? Is it hard to kind of find someone that's really in tune with their true essence of them as an individual, and you feel their energy?
That's an interesting question. So that's been, in a way, a challenge for me in my business life. Yet it's also the thing that draws people to me. So the lineage that I've studied and that I teach meditation through, the way that we do the practices is not like a certification program. It's over time, we begin to embody the practices, and we don't talk about it. Like even in the circles, like the inner Sangha, people don't talk much about their experience in meditation. And we definitely don't talk about the realizations that happen in our meditation, like outside of that circle. We may talk directly with our Lama, but it's not discussed outside of the circle. So in this world where people are spending a lot of effort listing their accomplishments as a way of convincing someone that they would be good to work with, that just isn't done.
Yes. That's why I was curious.
Yeah. So it has presented some challenges, and I think I'm still navigating how to balance both. Like, how do I establish credibility? I think it occurs when people are with me. They do feel something, and how do I explain that and still hold the integrity of where I'm coming from, this lineage that has held me for so long.
Right. And it's difficult. And I don't even know how I just got to that one question, just leaning in. I didn't really come in hot, obviously, but it was just curious, because I ended up with just kind of framing the first part of the question. I was like, well, I guess we just kind of go with that, because there's so much we can talk about, but I like to obviously, get really pinpoint on some of the questions that I ask, because it, opens up a whole other area of opportunities to display your talents and skills. But it's really difficult in that industry. You can't lean in and I guess you would say, try to credit yourself with all the people that you worked with and all the things that you do in those type of situations, because these are traumatic experiences with people.
That's another piece of it.
That's a lot of pain. That's a lot of pain and personal things that they suppressed for so long. And they probably have never even communicated that to another human. And that's difficult.
That's been my experience. So there's so many complexities. It's amazing that you are like, I guess it's not. And the time that I've been getting to know you, this is your gift, right? That you can sense right into the essence of something without even needing to describe it to you. So yeah, the clients that I work with in treatment for mental health or substance use disorders, there's a line of confidentiality, both in the session itself, but they're at residential or outpatient facilities. So I may discuss their case with the clinical team if it's appropriate. But then beyond that, of course, I would not talk about someone's case. And then with the professional athletes that I work with, there's also a strict line of confidentiality that I hold, where I discuss who I'm working with or why I'm working with them. Because what's happening in sessions with me is that like the pre-verbal connection, which you're alluding to, and I can describe what I mean by that in just a moment. We'll kind of put a pin in that word, but this feeling of like safety and comfort and a resonance with someone. And in my experience, and in the experience of many others, this is deeply healing, just to be with someone in this compassionate presencing. And so sometimes they will share with me with words what's happening for them, but sometimes we don't even have to say the words.
Right.
The experiences themselves cannot be described in words or can't be accessed with words. So that's why I call it pre-verbal. And that's like much of what's happening with me and what I do. And it's so hard to how do I tell people or describe this in a bio? But it's experiencing each other on the pre-verbal plane and allowing a healing to occur there.
I obviously my story, and we've had other conversations, and the listeners, obviously, if they're tuning in, they've heard me probably say it, and like their ears are going to bleed right now. But that was my gift that I received from my deceased sister growing up. Like when I was in those moments in that, experiencing being with her and sharing some time and sharing space, right? I was, she couldn't communicate verbally. So I would have to selfishly enough put myself into her shoes 100% and consent, using in the way that you coined it. I loved it. Pre-verbal trauma and understanding what she's going through and why is she crying? Why can't she walk? Why can't she talk? But I knew how to communicate, and it was a connection that we had. So when I lost that connection, that was something that it took me years to develop enough courage and sometimes a framework to rediscover that again, because I suppressed that emotion so much. So I love what you do. And I was reading that. It's so funny because when I was reading some of the information you provided to my team, I was like, wow, I already knew this anyway, intuitively, but because you kind of know when someone knows their stuff, you can sense it. And I think that's where your credibility comes into play when they're working with you. They probably know within the first 20, 30 seconds. Yeah, she knows what she's doing. She knows what she's doing. So that's an amazing thing. So expand a little bit on in your words, and I guess in a lot of things that you do, because you got compassion meditation and those traditions, right? And then energy healing from the complex trauma, just from my mind of me reading it, just my memory. But can you expand a little bit more in depth on what you mean by pre-verbal trauma?
So this would be any experience that happens at a time when perhaps we didn't have the language to process that experience.
Okay.
It could also be a time when we had language, but we didn't have the vocabulary or the contextual understanding of the bigger picture. And in this case, I'm thinking about all of the isms. So as a young person, let's say, maybe no one has taught us about sexism, but we experience or witness sexism, but we don't have a word for it or a place to put it in our worldview. And so it feels wrong, but we don't understand the fuller picture. So if someone asks us what happened, we can't describe like the fuller meaning or why it's having such an impact on us on a soul level. And then there are experiences that we just simply don't remember because they happened at a time when we were very young, or they were so traumatic that we can't access the memories. And I'm even talking about experiences that our ancestors had.
Oh, wow.
Right?
Yes.
And we know from epigenetics that what our ancestors were doing 7 generations ago, even what they were eating, is now a part of our lives. And I noticed when I was invited to work in these residential treatment centers for people who have really complex cases, it occurred to me that most of the healing centered around clients being able to describe what had happened to them. And in my personal experience, the major traumas that I have experienced in my life occurred when I was an adolescent. And I experienced systemic oppression at that age from an institution that I was told I could trust, my school. And when something bad happened to me at my school and I reported it, then the school district took action to protect their own interests rather than to protect me as a young person.
Yeah, you see that a lot, especially with a lot of things that are going on in today's world.
Absolutely, right? So this happens with racism, with ableism, with, just any ism. This is happening. And when I was at that age, and my family was trying to help me to heal from these experiences, I didn't know the word systemic oppression. I felt like I was not safe. I felt like there was this conflict where I was supposed to be able to trust. Powers that be were telling me I could trust. I had an inner sense that wasn't.
Yeah, something's not right. It's not matching up. Yeah.
And I was being invited into the lion's den essentially, and told that I had to do this in order to heal or to do what was just, and all of those complexities on top of the original trauma itself. So like you as a young person, I developed this capacity or ability to have this unspoken communication in my family of origin. And then through this traumatic experience, I came to rely on that a little bit more, like my own spidey senses, what is being said here? What can I trust? Who can I trust? And when I went to work in treatment, I saw that the therapists were asking these young adults to describe what had happened to them. And I could feel in their presence that what had happened was so much more complex than anything that they could describe.
Wow.
Because they're not aware of the grown-up issues at play that we understand with our grown-up eyes, with our adult eyes. Some of us as adults, we still don't know. We still don't have the language to describe what's happening. And part of this is because these systems of oppression are designed to thrive. And so they don't want us to know their inner workings, the systems themselves, the suppressive nature of these systems. And so when we are victims in those situations, it's we're already dealing with the overwhelm of the trauma of being mistreated. And then on top of that, we're being asked to navigate a system that's designed to not be understood.
You mentioned the victim. And I have my own beliefs on certain situations. And I believe all of us are victims to a lot of things, especially in our adolescence. And then you make a choice or decision as an adult to be a victor, of that, you being a victim in that type of situation and being taken advantage of, and whatever that might be for people. And I think that the only people that have experienced really traumatic times in our life and situations, and the ones that have been alone in our own thoughts to start to rechannel and navigate through all those, really uncomfortable feelings and you can't really communicate sometimes how you feel. It's almost impossible. Yeah. And you're like, I don't know what I feel. I hear that a lot with people, and how I'm able to penetrate and get to the root and cause is because I've been there before. And they don't need to tell me, but I know the feeling, and I now know what to do with them. And I'm sensing that that's one of your gifts and how you're able to do it on that type of capacity. Would you say that would be true?
Yeah, it feels very similar to what's occurring for me in those moments. So like you said, within like the first 30 seconds or less, the people I'm working with are, and I think especially everyone has experienced trauma, varying degrees of trauma,
yes.
Right? And that's just the reality of our world and being human. But for those who are in a process or a place where they are exploring healing and they're determining who's safe to work with or who might be able to help me, who can I be vulnerable with and share this with, then they recognize instantly. It's like an energetic tone if someone is safe or not. Are they in alignment? Can I trust them? And when I was younger and I would get like downloads about my classmates, about their vulnerabilities, for example, kind of having a sense, at a very young age that like this particular student, when they go home, they're hungry at home. And I had no like reason to think that about them. And then I would find out as I got a little bit older that that was the case for them.
Wow.
And not to have those downloads because I thought they didn't consent to me knowing this, and I might not be right. But now, as I've gotten older, I think on some level there is a consent. There's that recognition that you're talking about. Like, I feel safe enough here. And something about that lets someone like you or I, who are in the position of like kind of knowing or receiving that information, it's like a lock and key. It opens it up for that to be shared and to be felt or experienced in hopefully in a trustworthy way. Yeah.
That's so powerful what we're talking about right now, because a lot of people that I know for sure, even some of the ones, and I'm not going to name drop because it's just for the confidentiality.
Yeah.
They have shared with me horrible experiences that they have almost forgotten. Okay. And I would be working with them and I would pick up on it and make sense. And I would send a message. I'm like, hey, I know that we were in that board meeting and I know that, you mentioned some things and certain triggers and you made a comment and you reacted and that's unlike you. And if you don't need it, I'm not going to charge you all of this. We're a member of a team. We're, board members. So if you want my help, I can help you. And then we got on the phone and he was open to it. We got on the phone and then we started going through the process and I started getting through the layers. And I opened, it's like you talked about that lock and key. Well, I had the key to that lock to open it up, but he would never expose that lock because he couldn't find it himself. And so that I gave a sense, and I didn't have to tell them I got you, but he felt that energy from me because I was literally in his space and in that moment with him, like I was there.
Yeah.
And I was able to pick that lock. And I was like, listen, and I always tell this to people. And when I really feel like I'm in that moment, in that zone, and into the nucleus of the root and cause and the experience, it's like playing a movie back again. We're going to watch this again, and I'm going to watch this with my mindset and let you know what I see. You know what I mean? So, and I let people know right from the beginning, listen, this is going to hurt. This is going to suck. But I will let you know that I'm here, I'm equipped, I'm talented, and I got your back. No matter what's going to happen from here, I'm not going to judge you. I'm not going to say anything. This is between us, but I'm going to be here. I have the tools, I have the skill set to be able to realign this for you to do anything in life. You're going to feel better about this experience, where you won't have this trigger, this dysfunctional routine that he was having. So we picked that lock and bam, it was like that 1 millimeter move. And he was able to have better relationships, better. He wasn't masking because everyone, I think it's a Japanese say that you have 3 masks: the mask that everyone sees, that one mask that you have when you're alone in your own thoughts or whatever that might be. And then the other mask when no one's watching you. that you're trying to suppress, you're trying to not show. And that's really powerful. But I sometimes think that a lot of people like lead different lives and and put different masks on for certain things. How much do you pick up on that right from the beginning when you're working with someone?
Well, I'm going to take a second to just take in everything you just shared. What an incredible gift you have, and what a gift for both of you to be together in that way, right?
You have a lifelong friend that way. I talk about this with a lot of some people. They're like, oh, how did you become one of the top 1% in sales? I'm like, because I never sold a thing to anyone. I presented them a solution, but I've never sold anything. I don't sell I would never sell like the normal. I can't tell you how many sales books that I would get through the 3rd chapter and be like, this is awful. And so, but you have to put yourself there. And I would tell people when I was asked that question, I did a thing on Forbes and they were asking me questions for an article coming out. And I was like, listen, there hasn't been one person that has ever come to me and said, Chris, you really disappointed me. It's like, hey, the company or whatever that was disappointed them, but they don't look at me a different way because it was the connection that I had with them.
Yeah. This is I think why we connect, because that's
it goes to Mike Diamond. Mike, I love you, man. Yeah. And we communicate a lot. I'm not going to disclose, we got a show and stuff like that coming out. I'll let you know, but I love him. Like he's like I've never had a brother, but he's like my brother. I love him that much. But we were having a conversation. He's like, I got the perfect person you need to meet. Yeah. And he was like, and he connected us. But yeah, it's been, I really appreciate like meeting people that I'm 100% aligned to. And it's like, and it only comes from people that you're 100% with that introduce you to the right people. So I'm very grateful.
Yeah, me too. And I mean, I don't know about you, but I can even feel like, this might sound kind of cheesy, but like a heart connection, even in this moment, like this conversation is occurring on a heart level, not any other level. And that kind of ties into your question about people wearing masks. And I think I see the masks, but what I'm connecting with people, and it sounds like you do this too, is I connect, I hope, with their deepest dignity, like who they are beyond the masks. Because in my view, everyone is suffering.
Yes.
I was thinking about this in my meditation this morning. Can I tell you like a kind of a quick?
No, please. Yeah. Love it.
So, so the meditation practices that I teach are from Tibetan traditions. And a couple of years ago, I was in Nepal, where several Tibetans have moved for safety. And there's a town in Kathmandu called Bodha, and it's where the Bodha Stupa is. And adjacent to the stupa is a monastery where one of my main teachers, a monastery that he oversees. And the Tibetan Buddhists, they walk around a stupa. I don't know if you've ever seen anyone do this as a part of.
I've seen. Obviously, I've watched a lot of stuff with spiritual healing and things of that type of nature. So I know. I've seen it before.
Okay, so the stupa is in kind of like the center of town, right? This enormous, and a stupa is like a monument for anyone who's like, what's a stupa? It's a great big white.
They had one. I've seen one in Sri Lanka as well.
Sure. Yeah. They're seen kind of throughout Asia and Southeast Asia, different forms over the centuries. These buildings that are religious, and both the building of them is a religious process, and then also the way that we honor them is for those who are of that religion. It's an honoring of the symbolism of the building. So people walk around the stupa as a part of it, like a prayer practice, and people do it in the morning, throughout the day, and people in Bodha, so we're in Kathmandu, are walking around the stupa in all forms. And by that, I mean I was remembering one gentleman who had just such large open wounds on his body. And some days his body would be wrapped, and on other days it would not be wrapped. There were people who were crying or were hungry, and there were people who looked just fine. And so we see in this moment something, or in this place, something that we don't see here in the US, and I'm guessing not so much in London. We don't see people like openly suffering, right?
No.
In our culture, we hide that, we keep that inside. And in a way, it was a relief to see the suffering happening like out there, right? It made me think, wow, how much are people suffering in silence back home in California, especially in Orange County where I live, where there's a lot that people do to change how the outside looks. And so within the Buddhist practice that I've been doing for 25 years, we explore the textures, the suffering in our lives, and we just kind of accept that everybody has suffering, and that we say nirvana and samsara are happening at the same time. There's a non-duality. And so one isn't better than the other. It's just the current condition in a way, as one isn't better than the other. I mean, the experiences that we're having are just a result of our karma, and we work through this, and there is a kind of safety through every experience.
I love this. I love this conversation.
And so when we talk about like the masks, my practice and my life for myself and for the way I view the world and even my work is to be okay with the suffering that anyone might be going through. And I think that like okayness and willingness to see it is a little bit of what you described when you said to this colleague and now friend, I won't judge you. It's okay. I'm trained to do this. We can cultivate the kind of courage and the capacity to be with not only our own suffering, but the suffering of others. And it's, in my view, it's not possible to be with someone else's suffering.
Yes.
And not our own suffering, right? Like if you get one, you get both. It happens kind of simultaneously. And finding this courage and this capacity is, I think, the key to all of us having more like happiness and joy in our lives and just a general better quality of life. And back to, if imagine you're in Bodha right now and you see people walking around the stupa, and there's this man with this large open wound on his body, and people are just walking by, like, not that he's not there, but they're not treating him any differently than anyone else who's walking by the stupa. And as people have their hands stretched out for offerings or donations so that they can eat, people freely just give to this person as if it was the part of themselves that's suffering. Right.
It's recognizing energy, and just recognizing that energy for what it is, and don't see the outer layer of the energy. Like I was talking to someone about this before. I was like, I'm just energy in the flesh. I'm in the flesh. You see me. I'm in the flesh. I'm real, but I'm just a mixture of energy. And you touched on something, and I really want to bring up. You talked about our existence in our present moment. It comes from our choices and decisions, and karma or whatever that might be for people. And I truly believe this. The decisions and choices that you have made up until this present moment is a complete reflection on what you feel about yourself, and how well do you love yourself. And I would recreate my own trauma previously in my relationships. I was attracting the same person, the same type of person in my life. And now I'm more conscious of it, of course, but I had to do it by myself. I had to choose to love myself, give myself permission that I did love myself enough to experience that joy in life. And that was something that I was suppressing, and I wasn't able to feel that type of level of joy in my life anymore because of the last time that I was able to feel that satisfaction and joy was from my sister. And then when she passed, it was like I took like a hot iron or something. You ever seen someone with like an open wound and they try to stop the bleeding? I just put stuff on top of it, on top of it, top of it. And I would tell everybody that I was okay because that was a strong thing to do. Well, the illusion, right? But everything's an illusion. So, and everything's an illusion, but are you disillusioned? You know what I mean? So, and that's a really difficult question. How much do you experience that with people? And how do you address it if you do experience? I mean, do you see it?
Oh, I think what you're describing is so natural. I mean, I feel that from an experiential kind of perspective. And then also right now I'm really into like rediscovering the theory of constructed emotion, which is one of my college professors realized or developed or suggested. Her name is Lisa Feldman Barrett. So the familiarity or going to what's familiar is something that like all humans do, right? I see this in my own life. I see it throughout treatment. It's I think a part of the human condition. It's familiar. So we go towards that, even if it's unhealthy.
Yes.
Right.
Just to feel something because you're not feeling anything. So you would choose, what you would end up doing is you're choosing that dysfunctional routine because you know that that's the end result. And, you know, for you to receive that feeling, but you're saying all the right things, but your subconscious is controlling your life and you don't know that you're like a magnet and you're getting sucked to it. Yeah.
So then that's where like the brain chemistry or the brain functioning becomes really interesting. And while I studied with Dr. Feldman Barrett, I am not a neuroscientist. I studied with her like early on. I didn't go all the way, so apologies if I'm butchering her theory, but or the way the brain works. But you know, as I understand it, the brain is not. We think that it's here to think, right? But that's not it. It's just this like thing that is regulating the body that it's in charge of, right? And the brain is actually predicting what is going to happen.
Yes.
And then when the thing actually happens, that confirms or contradicts what the brain predicted. And then the brain might make adjustments based on that. The brain is making predictions based on past experiences. So then it's like mind like blown. To what extent am I truly creating my reality based on my prior experiences? And the trick is, I hear a lot of people who are into like modern meditation who want to like interrupt that process of the brain predicting, and we can't. It's like it happens too fast.
That's like scratching an itch. It's only going to be just for a moment. It's not going to give you everlasting change. But yeah, I love this. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's also impossible. We can't. That's happening like before like our level of like cognition. So the way to change the way the brain predicts is to change our experiences. So we can take responsibility for how what's happening in our lives by changing the types of experiences that we have, and make it like a conscious choice to maybe understand. Attachment theory and understand why we're drawn to particular relationships or to seek healing, so that we have relationships that look and feel differently than our previous relationships. And then the brain itself will start to predict differently based on these new experiences.
Right. I love that. Man, this conversation. I knew that we're, just like all of conversations. I didn't really expect to get into this, especially this part of the conversation on this topic, because a lot of people aren't aware of what you're talking about right now. And I'm going to try to explain this for the listeners a little bit more. When you're recreating your own trauma, recreating your own experiences, sometimes the best thing for you to do is not to be alone in your own thoughts with it, is to change your environment completely. And if you can't change your environment, change the people and the things inside that environment. And if you start, it only takes you, I learned how to become a dripping faucet. It's like that's just the only way I can like pretty much describe this. That dripping faucet, water can move everything. It can it can manipulate a rock if it hits it in that right way over and over and over. So that dripping faucet for me, what it represents, it's for me to just see 1 degree more of something better. I need to get a little bit better here, a little bit better here, be a little bit more aware. Talked to a good friend of mine the other day, and I was helping him with some things that he's trying to get out there and get more exposure. I said, I have 4 A's. to every situation. You need to be aware. If you're aware, then you can know what's happening and you know the feelings, whatever that might be. Once you kind of figure that out, that's a whole process. The next one is you have to accept where you currently are at the moment and why, and what's led you to this moment. Like you can manifest your future. You can create that, but you need to fix this now and stop the bleeding and change the trajectory and changing the experiences and the people or whatever that might be. The next one, once you have that, your intuitive side, you're tapping into your intuitive self, and that calm voice will lead you to where you got to go. It's like a beacon light. That's the next piece is you're starting to take action to stop the bleeding and start making a different movement and creating different experiences, meeting people like yourself. Like I expect to meet people like you because I've put in the work. Do you know what I mean? Like I've created these experiences, and I understand this. And the next one, you got to hold yourself accountable and create those boundaries where you're protecting your true essence of you. Not what you're trying to do in life. And people say, well, how do you become like uber successful in life? The same thing, and how to be completely and happy with your life and be like, I'm happy with the cards I was dealt. I didn't know that I was going to be dealt these cards, but I know how to play my hand. I will tell you that. And I don't have to cheat. You know what I mean? So, and it's like, if I'm able to keep doing the right things every day and being that dripping faucet, then I'm going to create so many great experiences and so many great things moving forward, as long as I keep putting in the work every single day. And it happens every day. It has to happen every day. How much do you see? And that kind of brings me to a good question. How much do you see that with your, people that you definitely help? And once they get to the point, and I know this happens, because it happens a lot with me. I'm healed. Right? I'm healed. I'm so much better now working with you. Right. How do you go about trying to explain to them in the nicest way? And you're very, obviously the way that you probably would explain is easier. Well, probably a lot more better than mine. But how do you go about trying to explain to them this is a process that never stops?
Well, this is, I think, maybe why I ended up working in treatment. Because within that setting, the client has already been told that, like they've already currently in the treatment world, that's kind of the understanding that healing is a lifelong process. So I find that environment like palatable because I don't have to like convince people, right? But clients who reach out to me, like because they've heard about my work or something, who want to do like one session, the way that makes me feel.
Band-Aid. I want a Band-Aid.
It makes me feel like a parlor trick. Once I thought that, I realized that, I was like, this is why I won't do it. Like, I just won't sacrifice my integrity, because people do have a felt experience that's profound. And I think that can sometimes blind them to what's really happening. Like, sure, you're going to feel some energy in your body, or you're going to feel a connection in a way that you've never felt before, but that's not the point. Like, that's happening. The point is the healing that's really happening. And as you said, that takes a while. So I don't see clients who have that goal or that I don't know, that like worldview where they just want to have like an experience and just like go to one healing session or something. And it's difficult because, we live in a world where like the customer's always right.
Yeah. Well, no, that's the world that's manifested up into this from previously people and businesses trying to make money. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's where that saying comes from, is that they don't want to lose business and lose money. It's all about coin.
Right. But for me, I am in service of people. Like that's why we're able to do what we do. Yeah.
Yeah. It's like we're changing the narrative on what everybody's ever taught people. They don't teach. They should teach this stuff in school.
Amen. I have so many ideas. Like, we should have a course on like, energy awareness, understanding.
100%. Bam. That's how it happens.
we should have a course on like how to appropriately break up with someone, right? Like
I wish I'd have learned that one a long time. You know what I mean?
What would it be if we didn't have like that trauma from early relationships? Anyways, but so it's difficult. I think probably make a lot of people mad, but I refuse to not be in service of a client. So then there are meditation programs out there where like you do a weekend and you've learned the meditation practice, and that's like legitimate within that discipline. But the lineage that I follow, it's the Tibetan Buddhist practices, Vajrayana. We have a relationship with our root teacher that lasts maybe a lifetime, many lifetimes. Like I recognized my root teacher before I knew what a root teacher was. From previous lives, probably. So I do have to spend a lot of time explaining to people, like, I can't do like a weekend workshop with you to teach you to meditate. What I do is we enter into a relationship, a lifelong relationship. Are we with each other every week for the rest of your life? No, but the energy of our connection will continue, I think, for many lifetimes.
I've gotten to the point with you having those people in your life, and I know this for me, and I'm going to ask the question: how much with everybody that you're helping, and you're that much in tune with the spirit of them? Okay. Sometimes when I'm working with people and I haven't talked to them in a long time, and it changed, of course the relationship changes, but that you're still connected. Once you're connected to the deep part of them, that connection, I don't think ever leaves, but you have to navigate through that, and you have to use your senses to get yourself to that 0.000 and dial it all the way down to that one thing to really be connected to an individual. And once you're connected, I don't think you ever leave that energy 100%. Like it's kind of, you see this a lot with twins or triplets. The other twin will feel what's going on. And my older sister, but of course I had a younger sister as well. I can sense something's off with my younger sister because I think that we've had to learn how to communicate non-verbally. So we've had a different connection than a normal family would have. Yeah. But even people that I've worked with and even people that I've come in contact with over the years, they can sense something's off with me and I can sense something's off with them, and I'll reach out.
Yeah. I think this is what science doesn't fully understand yet. Or maybe there are some scientists who are onto this.
That's something we can do.
But it's like we're so deeply connected. And this is, sometimes I talk about like whiteness and white supremacy in the healing world and in science. And people are like, where did she just go with this conversation? But let me try to like explain.
I know where you're going with it, but go ahead.
So white supremacy privileges logical knowing, right? And so that being a power over our academic institutions, our medical institutions, what we perceive as being like worthwhile endeavors with our time, that has influenced what we see as like worthwhile. And so we're only, up until recently, we're paying, at least our culture is paying more attention to the like logical knowing and what we can see and what we can touch, and pay less attention to this other stuff that we're describing. And I'm excited for the day when we really like embrace exploring what we can't see and touch and stop calling it woo woo or whatever else, because everything is energy, right? And it, again, I don't want to like sound like I'm an expert on something I'm not, but mirror neurons are a thing that everyone can agree on, where a neuron will be, like a molecule will be doing something, vibrating at its own rate over here, and another one will be doing its thing, and they get within a certain proximity and they sync up. Why is that, right? And so we can imagine that's happening across space and across time, like with these ones that you've honed in. So this like deep, specific, like what's the word I'm looking for? Like very precise connection with people. And it's so common, right? Like that. I don't know many people who have never had such an experience where they're thinking about someone and that person then calls them, right?
Yeah, there's no coincidence. There's no coincidence in life. There's none. Zero.
Yeah.
There's zero. And there's no luck. It's just energy. Like where we are, like the only thing in life right now matters, and I'm conscious of it. I'm very much aware of it, is right now.
Yeah.
Who I was a second ago doesn't matter.
Mm-hmm.
Who I'm going to be in the next 5 seconds isn't going to matter. I'm creating that by the experiences that I'm having right now from my way of thinking. If you want to be successful in life, you got to level up your thinking.
I take it a step further. I think
please share. Blow everybody's mind. Love it.
As like this sensitive person. So I think everyone is, sensitive to varying degrees, and we can imagine there's a spectrum. And so in my experience working with people in an energetic kind of way, I would place myself like pretty high on the sensitivity like spectrum. So having this as my life experience, I think that not only what we think, but also what we are feeling is what we have to get to that level in terms of like what we're working with. Because prior to the thought, there might be an agitation in the subtle body occurring.
And wow.
The thought could be a reaction to that agitation in the subtle body, like making sense of that signal in the body, that little flutter.
Wow. Okay. My mind just went somewhere. Do you know, like I'm from Charleston, South Carolina, and it doesn't get cold often in Charleston. Okay. And it's just like obviously where you are. Right. But
Yeah.
I like football season. I remember playing football growing up, and I remember right around a certain time, I could always hear, like when I was a kid, I can hear the stadium playing, like the JV would play a day before the varsity, before I played. Right. So I can hear them on Thursday, like the stadium, because it was close. And I would leave the door open just to hear the announcements, if they're wanting or not, and I would be in the room studying. I haven't thought about this in years, and it's so funny.
Okay.
But you sparked something for me, like when I would feel a certain temperature, I would think of that experience.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So then, that's like I guess I'll like describe, or I'll discern between the two. So there's like how I make sense of the world. Like that's how it feels to me, right? Like,
yes.
I could be wrong about what's happening in the body, but this theory of constructed emotion is so fascinating because our brain is like, this network that's predicting what's going to happen, but it's predicting that based on signals from like the outside world and the inside world.
Yes.
So it sounds, I don't know, I'm not doing a brain scan on you when you're having this experience, but that you perceived the temperature, which maybe was like the same temperature of that time in the past when it was the season. And then there you go. You're having like the emotion associated with it, with that experience.
Yeah. It's the neurons. You talk about those molecules in the neurons, it fired and wired. That's what the image, like right now, like the people that I try to talk about, painting what your life looks like from your perspective is like getting a blank canvas and start drawing it out and mapping it out. I just need to know the outer layers, and I can put the color there. I can change it. I can frame it for everybody to really visit. Like they see it so clearly, but they're doing it from my voice. And I don't do it in video. I do it in audio because I want, it really helps me have more of an impactful conversation, and I get really zoned in. And that's the energy level. You take that and you can fire and wire. You can rewire people, and you're rewiring, but you have to be connected to that. I can rewire. So I was talking to a client once. Actually, it wasn't a client. It was one of my good friends, Wes Bays. He was the co-host for the show for a little while. He's got his own shows and all those things he does. So Wes, if you're hearing this, man, I love you. I was talking to him about some things. I was like, what I truly do for people is I would get on a phone or get in person, whatever the situation, and I would ask questions. I would make them feel comfortable, and slowly into the conversation, I'm able to reach in. I'm able to reach into their mind and take their brain out, and I take mine and put it into their brain and in their head, And as I'm talking now I'm rewiring as I'm going through this process with them and talking. I know this sounds crazy, but communicating,
okay, yeah,
communicating with them and showing them with a different way of thinking that everything works and they can accomplish whatever that might be, and removing all that blockage. Yeah. And so walk me through, how do you feel with this? Oh, I thought this hurt, or this happened, or I thought this happened, I thought this. That's the problem. You're thinking, and I'm rewiring everything. And once I get them to the point where they feel that they can manifest anything they want, or whatever that might be for people, whatever situation, insert attitude, insert whatever, I take my brain back out. Now I take their newly rewired brain and put it back in their head, and I hit play, and I hit start, and hit on. They go, oh, I can do anything. I'm like, I know. All right, see you later. Bye. And I hang up, move on. So that's how I used to feel what I did for a living before I learned the actual terms and everything.
Yeah. Wow. That's amazing. That's really amazing.
It sounds crazy. I know that I used to feel like that was nuts until I learned the scientific terms and studying a little bit more of, how the chemicals, even in your brain, what sparks in certain situations, and knowing how to jump ahead of those before the client or before the business, before certain things actually transpire. I can jump way ahead of it before it happens. So I'm predicting what they're going to do based upon my questioning skills and the information and the data that I was able to get from them and capture, that I would know what their next behavior was going to go, what was going to happen. Even where in certain situations in my life, I had to go back and re-experience certain things and looking at a different perspective and a different frame. You can see something, and then I look for the motive. What was the motive that spiraled this experience and the next chain of reactions? Because this is a cause and effect world. This only cause and effect. There's a cause that happens, and then the action you take will cause an effect. So is it positive or negative? And people tell you that you can take a negative thought and turn it into a positive thought. No, you could take a negative thought and put it into a positive place and a positive outlet to get a positive reaction. And they don't understand, because I can't control what I'm thinking. Like, what's your next thought? I don't know. And you're going to start thinking about it, and you just be sitting there dazed. Sometimes you don't want to know what other people are thinking. I know that, and this led me to my question. And it's funny because I wrote this actually down. How much do you experience and feel their hurt and feeling their pain or feeling their story or feeling the situation? Can you tell them? Sometimes I know that I can do it sometimes. Can you be so aligned that they don't need to tell you what happened? You already know what happened.
Yes. Yeah.
I have a hard time explaining that to people. Can you expand on what that experience feels like for you in that type of way with you working with a client?
Sure.
I know it's a loaded question, and I'm just more curious.
No, I'm actually I'm kind of glad you asked about this, because I think that I hear of healers doing things that I feel are irresponsible and unethical.
Yeah. Okay.
And I did quite a bit of training with 𝙬𝙬𝙬𝙬, who is a well-known intuitive and author. And she was tested at a university or some organization in Italy years ago for her accuracy with medical intuition. And she was 97% accurate, which is wow. But when she tells that story, her point in telling the story is there's 3% of the time that I'm not accurate. And I don't know the difference.
I love that.
Right? So I hear, and I've even experienced, people hear what I do for a living, and then all of a sudden they just give me this psychic reading about myself. And not only is that inappropriate, because no one knows if they're saying these things as if they're 100% right, all of the time. And then sometimes they do it in front of other people. And the other people hearing this now have a bias based on what this person said, because they're so confident with what they're saying.
Wow. I love this. That's why I love hearing people when I ask them questions, they say it depends. That's what they say the first part. It depends because of that. But please continue.
Yeah. So when I'm doing healings, I am not trying to figure out someone's story. I am not trying to fix something. I am trying to be with them in that courageous way that you described, that you were with the fellow board member, being with them through whatever it is they're going through. And I'm letting the healing energy flow through me, and the healing energy is doing its work. And I am a compassionate presence, hopefully not having any reactions to what I'm sensing, and hopefully not having any reactions to my reactions to what I'm sensing, right? Like
right,
that's
100%. Yeah.
what my work is.
That's what I'm saying. You have to be aligned to be able to get to do that ethically, but love this.
Yeah. So just last week, for example, I was doing a healing with a client. It was my first time meeting her. It was in a group setting at an outpatient facility. And this woman, probably somewhere in her late 20s, early 30s, hovering my hands over her body. And I got to her like pelvic area, and I saw a red light, like a dot. And I felt like, wow, the intensity of the pain right here. And I felt like the pain was like right, like in her genitals, and had to do with her reproductive system. But it was like right there at the center of her pelvis. And so I thought, okay, I don't know what that means. I'm not going to make a story around this. That's what I felt. And then clients were sharing what they experienced after. And this particular client said that she shared that her 3-month-old daughter passed away recently. And there was this pain.
Oh my gosh.
Pain. So sometimes it comes through like that, like, wow, I was like right on target with like kind of like where the pain originated. And it even felt like I was thinking of like ancestral, kind of like something to do with like her like family lineage, you know.
That's so crazy.
Isn't that crazy? Other times, like, I know people are pregnant before they know they're pregnant, but I don't say anything, and then they say, oh, I got pregnant.
I'm like, oh yeah, I knew. Well.
Yeah. Oftentimes, like, there are certain tones that I am very energetic tones that, like, this has actually been a gift of working in treatment, where I have the opportunity to talk to a clinical team to confirm what I might be sensing. So I've recognized that there seem to be energetic tones that I can pick up on that indicate particular types of experiences. So experiences like sexual abuse, and maybe like at what age or what the dynamics were around that, I can pretty accurately notice. Other things, like I just wrote an article last night about something that I noticed in treatment that surprised me when I first started working with young men, was the tone of paternal rage running through their bodies.
Wow.
These young men, what it's like for them to be in that environment where the father has this rage, and the way the mother responds to this, and then their reaction,
and obviously what they do. Yeah.
This has now impacted their lives and their behaviors.
It's really interesting. It's really interesting. If you don't mind me interjecting here.
Yeah.
I was just talking man, it's so funny. I was just talking about, my dad's a very loving man, and I'm not trying to shine a light or a negative light on him at all. But even when he gets in his mood, or he'll start, he works a lot. And sometimes it works like shift work, and he's done it for his whole life. Okay. Like that's where I got my crazy work ethic from, is him. But sometimes when he gets upset, he'll say things just out of fear, which I know, out of fear of something. And he says something, and he gets really loud and really, I wouldn't say abusive, but it's really that tone. Even I'm 39. So even I'm about to turn 40. So even at the age that I'm at right now, if I'm at home and I hear that, I completely tense up. Like I tense up. And it's so funny that you're saying that. I literally tense up and go into like protection mode.
It's, Chris, I think it's so deep in the work that I've been doing. I mean, I think it's passed down through families, but it's bigger than that, because this like paternal rage that is so common in like the bodies that I hover my hands over. This is a societal issue. Like, we aren't properly caring for people. And
they got to teach this stuff in school. They have to.
Right. This toxic masculinity is turning into like repressed. My guess, or my sense of things, is that it's turning into repressed emotion. And men, I mean, when I left, I was working in finance in my 20s. And when I left to go work in the nightclub business, and I was throwing these amazing parties, and my friends from finance would come to these parties, a few cocktails in, because I would like host tables for them. They would come up to me, these young men in their 20s working in private equity at like top firms, total dream job after going to Ivy League schools. And they would say to me, how'd you get out? Like, how'd you have the courage to leave this? Like, they didn't want that job. They didn't want to do that, but they were told that as men, that's what they're supposed to do. So from such a young age, we're robbing people, speaking of men right now, of like the opportunity to learn about who they are as people and become that.
They'll be better fathers, husbands, spouses, whatever. They'll be a lot better.
All of it.
Right.
Low nugget.
Chewy
there. Yeah. So I think it's so deep. So then what the child, in your case, even the 39-year-old is feeling, I think you're feeling not just your experience with your father. I think you're feeling on some level the collective experience of this,
100%.
The pain of humanity, right? Like a knowing inside of you, like, this isn't right.
I think I knew something that trigger me. And you're onto something, and I had to investigate this. Why I feel that way, because I know the effect long term of that would be, because I had to go back in myself and discover that and realign myself.
Yeah.
I would do the same thing that he would do when he would get upset. I would never hurt anybody or do anything to anybody. My mouth would get me in trouble, because I didn't know what to do with my emotions. I was reactive. I wasn't proactive. And so when I would feel that, I can identify it. And I will say this, over the past year, it's been one of the most challenging years of my life, but it's been the best year of my life, if it makes sense, because I'm just at peace. I'm just at peace. But every day I wake up, there's some baggage there. I gotta figure out. There's a new opportunity for me to learn something else, because I'm going through these levels. You know what I mean? And it's not that I'm penetrating all the way down to the nucleus and the essence of me, right? I'm now reliving and going through different experiences I haven't thought about since I was a child. And I'm like, oh, I remember when that happened. I can remember what people were wearing in certain situations.
Yeah.
And it's nuts. And I've actually, and the reason why I'm telling you this and what you said, it really hit home with me, because I have this knowledge. I feel like it's my moral obligation and my responsibility to share it to the people I love the most. And I did it in a third party type of indirect way with my father. And now he's conscious, and now he's aware of it. So the things that he would say, he actually went to my mom one time. It's like Christmas time, like putting stuff up, and he got agitated, and he said certain things, and being a jerk for a couple seconds. Things you do with the people you love the most, right? You're a jerk. So, but he was conscious of it and walked up, and he heard me call, and then I guess it was a trigger for him from a previous conversation. My mom's told me that he walked up to her after she hung up the phone and said he was sorry, and like, I know it happened. That's the first step. It's just being aware.
Yeah. Yeah. Wow, Chris. Wow.
I love this conversation, because I really resonate. I resonate more with healers and people that are extremely spiritual, of that way of thinking. I just don't, with other things, I don't resonate at all. I just don't have the mental capacity to be able to entertain a conversation with someone that isn't on that type of frequency. That sounds really awful, but I'm being 100%.
I think that there's a sense, I can kind of relate to a sense of like having more so when I was younger, and I guess today I have more like agency over the situations I put myself in, but an intolerance for energetic incongruencies is what I felt, right? And so, yeah, so now as an adult, I kind of get to choose who I surround myself with or how much conversation I have to engage with someone who is not energetically congruent. And for me, people who are spiritual aren't always, but, or, you know, they don't even have to be spiritual, just people who are energetically in alignment. There's a lot.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know how they get there. I mean, for me, that's kind of a spirituality.
Right. But I love what you said, though. You don't know how they got there, but you don't need to know the story. I don't need to know the story. I don't need to know the story in detail. Yeah. I just need to find my angle and my in. And once I'm past that exterior barrier that you put up and I'm able to break through a couple layers, I'll do the rest. Just keep talking about the experience. I'm not listening because I know the energy and I know to get down to that core now. So I do it a lot by questionnaires. Like when a client, they would fill out questionnaires, and from that first meeting, I didn't have to tell them who I was. They felt who I was. And that's why I set up the next frame of questions or the next calls. I'm like, the next call, I'm going to see if you might be the right fit. And I don't work with people that aren't true. And I'm very intuitive I don't say that completely, but like I would say, you know, from the things that I'm going to discover about you, I'm going to see if I can serve you and see if I can help you in that capacity. And if it's not a good fit, it's my moral obligation to, you know, point you in the right direction with someone who can help you. Right. And my time is best well served working with people that are aligned to that way of thinking and really want the best for, you know, humans, or best for whatever that might be. I structured that the same way I'm dealing with someone that's dealing with stuff that I would do a $100 million deal. I do the same thing. Yeah. I do it the same way. It's the same frame. It's the same format, different questions, different situation, but still same energy.
It sounds like you really have almost like a gift, or maybe you've developed it, of discernment. Like I'm hearing this throughout the conversation, like excellent discernment.
I don't know. I haven't really, like it's weird, and especially in a society that we live in, you know, people can call themselves anything they want to call themselves, right? And I typically don't really share like this type of conversation, you know, like as much. And I know I probably should, but I mean, I just don't. That's the whole thing about the show, and that's why I wanted to develop the, you know, broadcast and media network, and you know, the podcasts or influencers or whatever. I'm just developing a community, and I'm going to give them the right tools, skill sets, whatever it might be, and I'm going to help them manifest anything they want in life, because I feel like I've already done it all, you know, where for myself. So when this type of conversation, people can't handle that frequency, and I know they can't handle it, and they think I'm freaking nuts. You know, like they were like, I think Chris has lost his freaking mind. Yeah. Like Chris has lost his freaking mind. It finally happened. We knew it was going to go down.
Yeah.
And it was funny. I was having a conversation with, do you know Laura Powers? She's like the celebrity psychic. She's all over like TV everywhere.
I don't know her, but the name is familiar. Yeah.
Okay. I'll have to. Yeah. She's very obviously intuitive. She's like, you know, psychic, right? So, but we were having a conversation. I'm like, and I said something very so like people think I'm crazy, and she's like, "Who are you telling? You're talking." I forgot I was talking to. I forgot I was talking to for a second because I was just in the moment, and I was like, people start thinking I'm crazy. And people she goes like, "Who are you talking about?" Like people think I'm crazy all day.
Yeah.
You know?
We have to find a better word for that, because there's like a mental health like stigma. But I know what you mean. What's a better word that we can use? Because I use it too.
That's it. I don't know. Like I don't know. That might be my homework.
maybe, yeah, I haven't figured it out. That's one of my goals, is to find a different word. Cause I say that all the time because I feel that as well. I know what you're talking about.
Justin Breen calls it wackadoo. But I don't want to use anything derogatory. I want to use something to where it's like a, and it's a gift, but I believe everything's a gift in life.
Mm-hmm.
So when I hear some influencers or some people and thought leaders and some people that are big names, and I'm not going to name drop them right now because I've actually pulled them to the side. I was like, I see your point behind this, but that's going to sell to the masses, but it kind of contradicts the intention of you if you're preying on the masses. But if you believe what you believe and you're doing it for the right reasons, there's only a certain percentage they're going to see right through that smoke and mirror. And he goes, well, I'm not selling to them. And I was like, and it really hit me hard. Wow. I was like, this is what it's like.
There are many ways to live this life.
And you're choosing this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And we all, and I don't judge them. I don't judge him, and I don't feel a certain way. I don't, because I can't judge them because I don't know the situation behind that statement. Something might have changed. I mean, it could be a lot of, I just need to know the moving parts pretty much. I don't need to know the story. I just need to see the moving parts. Once I can feel those moving parts and knowing what's happening, I can start, I wouldn't say manipulate, because that's a whole other thing I want to talk about. And I know the way I go here, I'm conscious of the time. So that way we can have our own conversations for the listeners, because I have so many ideas are going in my head right now of opportunities. But the word manipulate, I know what I feel. And the word manipulate isn't a bad word and a derogatory word. It's just used by the intention that you're actually doing something. I think I manipulate myself every day, but I do it in the purest intentions. I'm using my powers for good, not bad. Mm-hmm. Right. So, but once you make that, it's like a very thin line. Once you take your toenail and put it over that line and doing something and using your powers unethically to get something that you want, mm-hmm. what typically happens, you can't go back, because unless you do a lot of realignment and tapping into your subconscious, mm-hmm. because your subconscious knows you just got away with it. And you're going to go back to that. Yeah. So we'll finish with that question. I think that's something that I'm just curious of, because it's different when like neuroscience of the stuff that I know, but healing and that type of way of you kind of feeling that and you seeing a certain color. Mm-hmm. What does that look like from your way of thinking?
You blow my mind. You're blowing my mind right now. I didn't see your question going in this direction. And the direction you took it in is, if I'm honest with myself, at the heart of what makes me different as a healer, or what I do uniquely as a healer. Wow. Yeah. And it took me a lot of some humility, recognizing why do people keep coming back to me for healings? I must be doing something different. Let's figure out what it is that's unique here, what's happening in my process. So when I was in the 3rd grade, I have a very clear memory of having a sense that in my mind, I thought something about the field, like the playing field, is uneven and it's skewed to my advantage. And I don't feel like that's fair. I don't feel like that's ethical. And so I want to not have this intuition anymore, which I had. And I like things like I would go to movies and know what was going to happen at the end of the movie. But I
okay, I like it.
The intuition must be helping me to do better in school than the other kids, or manipulate situations so that people would like me more or something. I wasn't intentionally trying to manipulate, but I felt like my intuition was giving me an advantage. And I was afraid that somehow I was manipulating the world. Mm-hmm. So since an early age, I've been sensitive to manipulation and not wanting to manipulate in any way. So then I meet Tibetan Buddhism, and the approach is not to change, solve, fix, transcend, nothing. That's not what we're doing in our practice. Our practice is being with whatever is arising. And so I was already like following that path when I became a professional energy healer.
Mm-hmm.
So whereas many energy healers are working with like cutting cords or changing something in someone's experience, instead, I'm not trying to manipulate. I don't know what their karma is. I don't want to heal them from this thing because maybe they have to deal with this and it's going to come back in another lifetime.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, this is so powerful. Go ahead, please.
Right? So I don't want to interrupt their karma in any way. I just want to provide peace along the journey and like comfort of knowing that they're not alone. And sometimes that shows up as a disease being cured, sometimes in a way that's like inexplicable. Sometimes it ends up in becoming a major shift in mindset. But that's not my intention when I'm doing it.
Right.
Yeah. So that's my thought on manipulation and healing.
I love it because the intention's neutral.
Yeah. It is. It's kind of neutral. Yeah. I think.
Well, what I'm saying is for you to be able to feel and to be able to be intuitive and to understand where the trauma or the pain is at, you would have to kind of be neutral. You can't be one-sided, I think, just from maybe my perspective, in my opinion. But but then once you're able to do that and feel it in your way of thinking, because you're an energy healer, then you know what to go. Now you know what you need to do. And now it goes back to that. Now it goes to the ethical side. You know what I mean? But you being neutral and just in that even playing field. And that's just, it's so funny that you mentioned, I would love to see you in the third grade. Like, it's just not fair. I know what's happening. I'm going to help you out.
I know. I was a different kind of kid for sure. Yeah.
I was, my mom, it's funny. I haven't told you about it. My mom, like when parents say, like, oh, my son's special, right? Like when they get the wrong feeling. My mom would say that because I was so empathetic. Like I was rare for a boy or, obviously man now, but a boy to be that intuitive.
Yeah, I bet.
And it came from my sister because it was the connection. And I think that's something, and I say this a lot, that that's my competitive advantage I draw from every day is I get to do what I do for a living because she couldn't, and I don't want to look her in the face. And when our energies meet again on the other side, I don't want her to be disappointed with the life that I manifested and created after she gave me a gift, and that's important for me. I say that a lot because that's my way of catching myself and putting myself in there. I have certain affirmations that I write down and I put on like little things. Like I'm not going to say my daughter's name, it's obviously a live thing, but it says, she is depending on you. Don't give up. Right. And what that represents for me isn't don't give up on whatever I'm doing. Like I got a constant reminder that what am I doing it for? I'm not doing it for her. I'm doing it to be so she's able to create the life of her dreams from what I have created. Do you know what I mean? Mm-hmm. Like I've read so many books on like being a dad or, like parenting but it all comes back to just the energy. And I think a lot of it is just they're selling other crap, and I see through the intention behind some of these authors is just ridiculous. And that's why I think I'm going nuts because unless I'm able to feel the energy and I know it's pure to its truest intentions, then I don't chop it up with you. I don't really I'll want the best for you because I live an abundant lifestyle, but you just can't get around me because I protect my boundaries. Yeah.
Oh gosh, I know you want to.
Right. So,
say on that. Yeah.
There's, for the listeners, I appreciate you tuning in all the way to the end of this. And Jona, thank you so much for coming on and blessing us with this amazing conversation. This is probably one of my top, got to be in my top 5, you know what I mean? And I don't want to stroke your ego and say probably it's my number 1. It sounds a certain way, but it's definitely one of my favorite ones. And that's another thing that I talk about with people. Is like I haven't talked about with people, but I feel it that I changed my way of thinking on what I do with my life and what brings me joy. I used to like sports or something of that nature. What I really enjoy the most of right now is just having so deep and impactful conversations that it passes, that it fast forwards time, because everything else around me, it just feels like it's slow, that I'm so that much into a conversation. So that I'm extremely grateful for this experience. Thank you.
Oh, same. Thank you. I feel so fortunate to be here with you and to be getting to know you better and better each time we talk.
Right. Yeah. I look forward to the future. Ladies and gentlemen, make sure that you check her out. We'll put it all in the show notes, but I guess it's what podcasters say towards the end, I guess you would say. Well, where can they what's the best way that you would like our listeners to reach out if they choose to do so?
Sure. They can go to my website, jonagenova.com, or I would say the platform I'm most active on these days is probably Instagram, and just search for my name, Jona Genova. You'll find me.